But man, we have a lot of new series to talk about.
We do. We got 4. It's a pretty big round. One of the bigger rounds that we've had in a while. Usually we've got 2 or 3, but we got 4 this time, no doubt, because the first series up on the docket for us to talk about, Samurai 8, was highly anticipated, and know that they've been planning to have this out for a while. We know they've been working on it for a while, so surely they've primed it for that spring release, for, the start at this moment with the serialization around, so they timed it pretty well. And of course, Samurai 8, The Tale of Hachimaru, comes to us courtesy of the pen of Masashi Kishimoto. He's writing the series, not drawing it this time. The art is going to be provided by Akira Okubo, who is a longtime assistant of Kishimoto, and definitely when you read the series, you can tell that a lot of the gorgeous detailed backgrounds in Naruto, it is highly, highly likely that Okubo was a huge part in bringing, the world of Naruto in terms of the background, especially in later volumes, to life.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okubo is a great, great approximation of Masashi Kishimoto's art style. Outside of a few things in terms of the way he draws characters, in terms of, the way he draws panels, backgrounds, you would not be able to tell the art style of Samurai 8 of Okubo and of Kishimoto apart. They are extremely similar, even much more so than Ikimoto, the artist of Boruto.
So what is Samurai 8 actually about? Because there is there is a lot we could go into.
Samurai 8 has quite the complicated premise. It has a lot of lore and world building up front, and it's heavily rooted in Buddhist mythology. Basically, there are samurai who are assigned to protect the galaxy. Samurai are chosen as such by warrior gods for being the most elite of Bushi, who are just sword-wielding warriors who protect the planet and princesses. They just are protectors, and the best of the Bushi become samurai by warrior gods, and those gods give them locker bars, which are like stars left behind by the gods, that allow people to transform their bodies into cyborg bodies, which have a key inside that will, allow them to activate their powers and stuff, and they give them superpowers like regeneration and all that. So the premise of the series, the goal of the series, is that the god Fudo Myoo, who in Buddhist mythology is the immovable wisdom king, the guardian of Buddhism, one of the 5 big deities of Buddhism, who is well known for, being associated with flames of fire, which are meant to represent burning away all material desires. And there's a lot of lore you can go into with figure of Fudo Myoo. But basically, as far as this series is presented so far, Myoo once used power contained in something called Pandora's Box. So we're having kind of a merging of mythologies here. I know Kishimoto really does like to play with that kind of stuff. But yeah, he used some power that he sealed in Pandora's Box to save the stars. And there are 7 keys that open the box, and the samurai need to collect these 7 keys in order to open the box, in order to help save the galaxy from destruction. And I guess the Grand Protector, the architect of all these samurai, they assign Daruma, who is this lucky cat-looking samurai, to go out and seek these 7 keys and collect them in order to open Pandora's box. But our protagonist's name is Hachimaru, and I'm sure there's significance to the 8 in his title. He might be the 8th key. They might be having to go around collecting 7 keys, and maybe he's called Hachimaru because he's the 8th key. Who knows? But anyway, Hachimaru starts the series basically as kind of a invalid, he's stuck attached to a life support device, which is this giant mechanical thing that is like attached to him. There's like all these wires. He can't move at all because it's like this big device attached to various points throughout his back. So all he can do is really play games all day. And of course, he has like a very emaciated body, he has cyborg limbs. He's very upbeat and enthusiastic and energetic, but he's, of course, very sad because he can't go out and explore the world. He can't go outside. And he really wants to be a bushi, a samurai. He wants to be, like, basically the opposite of himself. Someone who can, protect people. Someone who can, fight with courage and honor and be strong. But, of course, with his condition, it's just a dream for him and he doesn't think it'll be reality. But, he spends his days with his dad, who's, a very supportive parent, basically built the life support device that he's attached to, trying to keep him alive. And he also has, like, this dog who meows like a cat, and he makes the best of it. He has a very contentious relationship with his dad because, he does resent his dad for, like, holding him back. Like, he thinks that his dad could make, like, a more portable life preservation device that allow him to go outside and isn't for some reason. He's very, very bitter.
Jumping ahead here real quick, it broke my heart a little later on when Hachimaru basically tells his dad, like, hey, you could have finished building this thing that would have helped me go outside, but you didn't because you didn't want me to explore the world and leave your side or whatever, just being a total brat. And that kind of broke my heart a little bit.
It's a good relationship between the two. I do really feel it that the dad does care for Hachimaru, but I also understand Hachimaru's resentment because definitely the dad's keeping secrets from him. He knows more than he's letting on. He is definitely trying to hold Hachimaru back for some reason, for his own safety, for the universe's safety. Who knows? There's definitely more mysteries behind this character. Like, there's a cold open introduction that shows an as of yet unnamed samurai with a scar over their left eye who has a key holder, which is like a lion dog creature that is very, very similar to what Hachimaru's pet Hayataro transforms into once it becomes a key holder. So there's a definite mystery there. How is Hayataro related to the dog lion that's the key holder of this samurai? What is the samurai's relationship to Hachimaru, unanswered questions, mystery, but that'll definitely be revealed down the line. But basically, Daruma crashes down on the planet that Hachimaru is on, and Hachimaru encounters Daruma, while meanwhile, his dad has gone off to retrieve a locker ball, which, as mentioned before, transforms people into cyborgs, into samurai. Basically, things come to a point where Hachimaru is kind of going to be killed by an evil bushi who, wants to become a cyborg for evil means and all that stuff. Like, because Hachimaru inside of him has, like, one of the keys that will, like, help transform the key holder, so that the guy can, like, it can activate the locker ball and all that stuff. But anyway, the evil samurai gives Hachimaru the choice to kill himself, and if he does, he'll spare his father's life. And it shows it's a great moment where, like, it tugs at your heartstrings that, like, Hachimaru is willing to sacrifice himself for his dad, because even though he fights with him all the time, he really does love him. But instead of killing him, like taking out, his heart and all that, it transforms Hachimaru into a samurai, gives him the cyborg body and stuff. He's, no longer needs the life support system because he's all up and functional, with like a body that can regenerate and stuff. It also transforms, Hayataro. Hayataro, had been like horribly beaten, nearly killed by the evil samurai too. But now thanks to this power, like, Hayataro has transformed into, like, the lion dog form thing. But yeah, basically, Hachimaru becomes a samurai, he beats the evil samurai, and then from there, the further chapters have expanded on the character a bit. Hachimaru is able to go out in the world, make a friend in Nanashi, who is a non-binary character, which is cool to see. Also very similar to Hayataro in that they are friendless, they are kept inside and all that, and they don't think that they can go out into the world and make more of themselves. But Hayataro, basically inspires them to take action and to really pursue the happiness they want, which is cool. And then, eventually Daruma proposes to Hachimaru, for him to tag along with him as his disciple, join him on his journey, learn the path of the samurai, all that stuff, so Hachimaru becomes Daruma's disciple, and then from there, they're going off on their journey and stuff. So, there's a lot that has already happened in the short amount of chapters, and there's a lot of lore, a lot of details that I have tried to kind of gloss over as best as possible. I went a little more depth in the first chapter, but basically, there is so much of the series already that is very overwhelming in terms of the things you have to remember to keep up with what the story is. All this mythological stuff, there's just so much thrown at you in that first chapter that it really does kind of become distracting, and I did kind of feel lost. As the series has gone on and has not focused on that deeper world lore stuff and focused more on character throughout the chapter without that stuff, then it's become a lot more easy to digest and get behind in terms of empathizing and connecting with characters and getting interested in the story just on the simple level of this kid going out into the world, learning the path of the samurai, achieving some sort of grander destiny that he has in this universe, and the deeper mystery of who Hachimaru is, why was his father so protective of him, and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to as of yet, that I'm sure we'll learn later as we move forward with the story. But yeah, I totally agree that I'm very conflicted because I'm really enjoying this so far, and I'm definitely going to be keeping up with this. But I do agree at the same time, between a lot of the lore stuff and and even the art, because we were kind of talking about this on our Patreon bonus episode about that time I got reincarnated at Yamcha, patreon.com/Manga Mavericks. Go check it out. But we were kind of talking a little bit over there about how about the art for Samurai 8 in particular, because I think Maxie brought up about how cluttered it could be sometimes, and boy, he wasn't kidding. Even though he had told me about it ahead of time, I kind of wasn't expecting it. And it's the same problem that we said that Oda has, where it's there's so much detail going on at once in almost every panel that it's really hard to figure out what your eyes should be focusing on.
Yeah, there are several times reading this where I can't tell what's going on. It's just too much movement, too many details. Characters get lost in the background because there are just too many lines. There's just too much clutter in these panels. And so not only am I just distracted by just how much line work there is, just how cramped these panels are, it isn't held by the fact that the story, especially in that first chapter, is just so dense with all these things that you're trying to keep up with. Before, I was trying to explain why the bad guy was going after Hayataro, and I was trying to strain to remember what the reason was, and it's because of the samurai soul thing that hides a samurai's true weapon, which I completely forgot about. There's just so many details in this series that it's I already, it's only 5 weeks old, but there's so much just from the first chapter alone that has kind of fallen out because there's just too much to remember at this point. I think you really got to keep it simple.
Yeah, there's so much to remember between all the objects they're after, and all the stuff they're trying to collect, and all the details about whatever's going on with Hachimaru and his father behind the scenes, and whatever that's going to lead up to. There's too much to keep track of, honestly.
I completely forgot that Hachimaru is supposed to be one of the keys, that there's some significance that Dharma has been on this quest for 8 times. Like, there's just so many little things that are mentioned in this story that I'm like, if I don't, like, you really need to, like, keep notes as you're reading every chapter and refer to them as you're reading the next chapter, because there's just so much thrown at you.
We could, like, if someone out there wanted to do a podcast about Samurai 8 and dedicate like an episode per chapter, they could, because there's so much to keep track of, and there's so much to talk about every chapter just with those lore details alone.
I mean, they really should, because already the series has so many interesting Japanese culture connections in terms of its connections to Buddhism and this emphasis on Fudo Myo-o. They name-dropped another one of the wisdom kings of Buddhism, Kongo-Yasha, so presumably all of the 5 guardian wisdom kings in Buddhism are gonna be, like, a thing in the series, so there's just so much that Kishimoto is drawing from in terms of, you know, Buddhist mythology, in addition to all these sci-fi elements and additional details that he's built into this world. So it's like a really well-realized world. It's just that we're being introduced to it too fast, and we're given, like, too much information up front. Like, we really needed to start out a lot smaller. Like, with Naruto, like, we just got the idea that Naruto went to a school for ninjas. He was a class clown. No one liked him, and they resented him on some level because, you know, he has the 9-tailed fox inside him. And all, you know, it was much simpler, that story in the first chapter, than compared to Samurai 8, which is setting up so many details and so much foreshadowing. Like, the first chapter of Naruto, you know, there was obviously the whole idea that the 4 Tokage was Naruto's dad and all that stuff. Like, obviously, there were some ideas like that, you know, that were being foreshadowed in the first chapter, but not to this extent with Samurai, where there's like 100 things being set up all at once. And I'm like, let me focus on the characters first. And, like, what's there in terms of character moments, in terms of, like, you know, genuine, heartfelt, emotional core. You know, it is solid, but there's just so much distracting from that right now.
It feels like Kishimoto really wants to focus on both at the same time. Like, he really wants to develop all these characters, but he also wants to give you, like, his 100-page essay on this world that he's created. But all that info at the same time is really overwhelming, which is why I think I agree with you on the Naruto comparison, where it was like, you know, Naruto in the beginning, you're meant to, like, just kind of get to know these characters first and then the world second, which I think is the way to go. But unfortunately, we don't have that separation here, where we're kind of having to learn about both at once.
Yeah, most definitely.
I mean, otherwise, I'm still really enjoying it. Like, I was reading everything to get ready for the show today, and, like, after I read the first chapter of Hachimaru, like, you know, I was like, okay, I should probably get to, like, sampling the other series, so that way I at least know, like, what to talk about today. But then it was like, but I really want to keep going with Hachimaru. Like, it was kind of hard to put down, honestly.
It's the best of these 4 series for sure. Like, it has the most legs. It's clearly the most thought out. It's clearly the one that Jump themselves are definitely the most confident in.
I'm sure they're the most invested in this one. Like, they're not gonna let this go after, like, 17 chapters, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's by an established creator. The artists behind were the big hit makers. And they gave that first chapter like 70 pages, like a lot of space to tell that story. So, like, clearly they are expecting it to be big, and I can fully expect it to be big. I think that the series, you know, it is very interesting. I do enjoy it more with each chapter, the more we get to know these characters, so I am quite interested in it. I still really wish that it would kind of slow down in some areas, you know, not throw so much new ideas in terms of world building and lore at you every chapter, not try and put so much detail in every panel, in every page of the manga. Like, there are times where it's just too hard to read, and I have to go back a couple pages to figure out what's going on. In the most recent chapter, chapter 5, there's this part where they come across these, like, giant guardians who are, like, protecting some sort of gate, and these stone statues start moving and attacking them. At first I was, like, confused what was happening, because the stone statue creatures, they kind of blended in with the background to me because there was so many details. I didn't even register at first that, like, what was happening, that these two stone statues were in this establishing shot, that they were even moving the subsequent panels, where the characters were in relationship to them. I couldn't figure that out at first. I had to, like, go back and, like, really study the panels, and then, like really try and figure out where people were and who was who in this, when reading the sequence. So I think this is really damaging it as an action comic, that, like, there's just so much going on that it is hard to read and hard to follow the action. I will say that I think this would be a beautiful looking series, done in anime, and
oh my god,
if
yes,
animated really well. Definitely with color, the readability issue would not nearly be as much of a problem as it is in a black and white comic with relatively little shading. Which is, with the level of detail of this art, I don't see how you could do any more complicated shading and keep up this level. But
yeah, that's kind of my problem too, is that, like, almost everything is white, and, like, like you said, there's not enough shading to where, like, it's hard for me to differentiate one object from another, especially in, like, when you get those kind of shots of, like, the village or whatever that Hachimaru lives near and whatnot. Like, that spread looks so great, but if you were to tell me to, like, look for a particular detail, whatever that may be, like, I'd be hard pressed to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in at once, but, like, I feel like I have to admire Kishimoto for, like, because I don't remember when we started hearing about when he started working on this, but, like, this has definitely been in the works for at least, like, a year or two. Like, it feels like it's been a while since, like, this has been announced, and you could tell that Kishimoto has put a lot of thought into the world and the story, which I really appreciate.
Most definitely. Like, he definitely spent his time to really think this story through. He's losing all his lessons from Naruto, all the things he became more interested in terms of themes and the cultural references he wants to use for the series, what he likes to use for his series. He really merged all his interests together with this one, and is really telling something very distinct and different from Naruto, while still carrying, like, the same kind of vibe, because it's covering similar things that Kishimoto is interested in, like an emphasis on especially a father-child relationship, which was huge in Naruto. And of course, again, focusing on different aspects of Japanese mythology, this time specifically Buddhist concepts. Very interesting. Something that definitely makes me want to study the connections more as the series goes on, and I'm very curious to see how Kishimoto plays with those ideas.
Mm-hmm. So far, I think my favorite chapters have been with Hachimaru and Nanashi. I thought that was a really good part of the story.
Mm-hmm. I think those were good chapters to kind of contrast Hachimaru. It was good to have those chapters to have Hachimaru kind of on his own, like, have his first, like, adventure and really show off what he brings to the table as a protagonist without the support of mentor figures behind him. Like, that he can hold up the series on his own, and he can be an inspirational, aspirational figure like so many of the strongest shonen protagonists are.
But no, other than that, yeah, I mean, I really liked it, and I can't wait to read more, so.
Yep, I quite enjoy it. I think that this is a great successor to Naruto, and I will be very curious to see where it heads into in the future, and where it grows from here.
And I hate to show my hand a little early here, but, like, the rest of these I feel very mixed on, to say the least.
I will say that overall, I think this was a very weak round of jump starts, of new jump serializations. I did just praise Hachimaru, and I have enjoyed it more with each chapter, but I was not completely enthused by that first chapter, and that's how I felt with all the first chapters of all the series in this round. They really all got off to a weak start to me, and while, of course, I enjoyed them more with each chapter just because, there's more time to, get to know characters, I do think that none of these series have really hit the ball running. But Samurai 8 is the furthest along the journey. Samurai 8 is the most well thought out and the series that has figured itself out and knows what it's doing. And I am more confident in that compared to the rest of these series.